Welcome to A Meaningful Marketplace.
I'm Sarah Masoni from Oregon State University's Food Innovation Center, where I've helped countless dreamers launch their new food products. It's the science of taking a food delight from the kitchen to mass manufacturing and still keeping its great taste. That's what I do. I've been called the woman with the $1 million palate, although I haven't tried to cash that check yet. Listen in weekly for real-life stories.
I'm Sarah Marshall, owner of Marshall's Hot Sauce and author of Preservation Pantry, modern canning from root to top and stem to core. I love inspiring business owners to get started on their journeys, encouraging folks to be part of their local community, and I'm excited to help business owners tell their stories. Join us as we explore the journeys of women entrepreneurs in the food and beverage industry. Hello and welcome to Masoni and Marshall, the Meaningful Marketplace. We are here weekly to discuss the journey of food entrepreneurs. We are glad you joined us today as we bring you stories of hope and inspiration. This is Sarah Marshall, owner of Marshall's Hot Sauce.
Sarah Masoni of Oregon State University's Food Innovation Center. And
we have our special Wyoming co-host, Melissa, today from Central Wyoming College. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you.
Melissa, we're going to talk ranching today. And just to be upfront with everybody, this is our first rancher we've ever had on the podcast.
woohoo!
I know, we're so excited. I am guessing that Wyoming has a lot of cattle ranchers.
Absolutely. This is the Cowboy state. So definitely Wyoming is leading the way with ranching here, not beyond this podcast.
Well, I'm very excited to talk ranching. I've actually never been on a cattle ranch. Surprise, anybody? But
I don't think I've been on a cattle ranch either, Sarah.
I mean, even I'm so connected to our farmers here, but we only have one cattle farmer that comes to the farmers market, but they're actually pretty far away, about 4 hours from here.
Eastern Oregon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm excited about today's show. And Sarah Masoni, I just wanted to say thank you for covering for me while I was hopping from planes to trains.
Yeah, did you have a fun time? I told everybody you'd probably tell us about it. So
I did. I had a great time. I just a couple of food highlights really quick for my trip. I went to the East Coast, so I was in upstate New York. I was in Brooklyn. I was in Manhattan. I was in Maine. I went in Manhattan to an Indian restaurant called Brick Lane Curry House. And they've been on lots of shows and had.
Is that where you ate the really, really hot curry?
Yes. So they claim to have the spiciest curry in, the U.S. and it's called fall curry. So it's a blend of all these different dried and fresh chilies. And, you can do a challenge where you sign a waiver and you get your name on the wall and all of that. I didn't do that because I really wanted to try their other food. And it's a huge plate of like the spiciest curry. But they did make me a small version of it so I could eat it with my other food.
And can you confirm?
It's so hot.
It's so hot.
It's so hot. I
never heard you say that.
I've never said it. It's definitely the spiciest thing I've ever eaten. And, I've done all the hot sauce challenges like that we've been in with hot ones and stuff. But this was definitely the hottest thing that I've ever had. So if you're a heat seeker out there, I would recommend going and trying it. It has lots of, ghost chili powder, scorpion peppers, and then all these really spicy Indian fresh chilies that they put into their other dishes. But if you're looking for that, I recommend it.
It's hot.
Yeah.
I believe you. I'm not going to try it. I'll just believe you.
Yeah, believe me. I would say you should not try it, but some other folks that are seeking heat should try it for sure. Well, we want to thank our sponsor for supporting Masoni and Marshall. Thank you for helping us spread the word about entrepreneurs. Let's hear a word from our sponsor. The Northwest and Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center is the proud sponsor of the Meaningful Marketplace podcast, giving a voice to food from across the 6-state region of Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, and Wyoming. The Food Business Center supports Northwest and Rocky Mountain food industry makers as part of the USDA's National Network of Food Business Centers, supporting a more resilient, diverse, and competitive food system as a go-to source for small and mid-tier food and farm businesses with a focus on underserved communities, providing education in the form of technical knowledge, business programs, and industry news. We sponsor trade shows, meetups, and conferences to connect growers, producers, retailers, distributors, and processors, all to stimulate business and raise the standards of our storied food industry. Join us as we travel through the 6-state region, learning more about food makers, food hubs, and food systems. Visit the website at Northwest Rocky Mountain Regional Food Businesses.com to get connected. And we are joined in the studio today by Tyler McCann. Tyler is the co-owner with his wife Angela of Wyoming Cowboy Cuts, raising beef and lamb in the Wyoming prairie. Welcome, Tyler.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We're so glad you're here today. We really want to connect you with our listeners. What's the best way for them to find you on social media and online?
Yeah, on Instagram and Facebook, we're at Wyoming Cowboy Cuts, and our website is wyomingcowboycuts.com. And this fall, this spring, you can tell how tired I am. It's the middle of calving, so we've been trying to do a lot more of actually what goes on day to day on the ranch while we're calving. So.
Well, I mentioned in the introduction that you're our first rancher. So I'm just going to start out by apologizing. I'll have a lot of questions that will probably seem silly to you, but like you just mentioned, I have no idea what calving is. Calving?
Oh, that's when they're born, Sarah Marshall.
So the cattle are being born right now. That's what that means?
Exactly.
Yeah, all the little baby calves are coming this time of year, so it's a very busy time.
Well, now
How
I know.
many are born every day?
So we only calve our heifers, which is their first year that they're going to have a calf. That's when we have them here at the farm where we can watch them and help them if they need any help. But for the most part, the rest of ours, they end up being out on the desert and they calve out. So we don't actually track how many per day, just because some of those bigger pastures, my wife, she made a video the other day riding through one of those bigger pastures. It's about 25,000 acres. Mm-hmm. And so you're not going to get around that every day. And so we end up, we have a head count when we brand, but right here at the farm so far, the heifers have been averaging 3 a day.
That's amazing.
Well, and we really like to talk about not just your ranch, but what it is that you sell. So let's describe what product you sell to the public.
So our ranch is a commercial beef herd. We run a mix of Red Angus, Black Angus, and Hereford cattle. And that was, there was a need, or we felt like there was a need to be finishing some beef. And this is about 12 years ago, right about the time that my wife and I got married. We decided that we needed to look into the idea of finishing some beef. At that time, we just raised the calves, and we would calve in the spring, raise them all summer, and then sell the calves in the fall. And we had a few that weren't going to be, we would have lost a lot of money on them had we taken them to a public auction. And so we decided that we would go ahead and feed them. And we tried the beef when we thought it was fantastic. So we started looking more into finishing beef. And we use the beef side of our business, Cowboy Cuts, to kind of supplement the ranching side. So right now we sell beef, pork, and occasionally we have lamb.
And I saw if you purchase a certain amount, you'll ship that out to anywhere. But I also noticed when I was on your website that you sold everything. So we're waiting for the animals now to grow so that we can buy them, right? So
we have so much. We've tried shipping, and shipping is very problematic from central Wyoming. There's a few reasons that it's problematic. And so I'm not opposed to shipping. We still do offer that, but we have so much business here locally, just within the county, that we're not really able to keep up with even that at this point. Our local business is so loyal. They have been fantastic, and they totally carry us that way.
That's cool. I wanted to actually talk a little bit about sort of like the flow of cattle through Wyoming. So I found there's something called the backgrounder, of course, feedlot, and then processor. But what you're doing is actually taking some of the cattle and you're growing it to a size where we can harvest the meat. Can you just talk us through that process? I think most people don't really understand how cows and cattle and steers are handled and how beef gets to us.
Yeah. So I'm actually a first generation rancher. I married a fifth generation rancher. And so I definitely didn't understand the process myself. So I can give you quite a little bit. But we calve in the spring. Some people are fall calvers. You don't see that as much in the north as you do in the south, where the winters are a little more mild. But when we calve in the spring, they will, here in the next about 6 weeks, we'll start branding all of those so that we make sure all of our pairs stay straight. And that's when we'll get a good count on them. And those mothers will raise those calves for us all summer long. And then in the fall, we go ahead and start gathering. Our summer range is 56 square miles. So it's quite a project to get all of those pairs, a mother and a calf, gathered. And we'll wean those pairs. And so they'll get sorted into steers and heifers. And we'll keep the best heifers for ourselves that we would like to have those genetics go back into our herd. And then we'll sell the majority of those steers. And that is the point at which they might go to a backgrounder. And that person is going to take them from the weight that we sell them at, which for us is about 500 to 550 pounds. So they've grown quite a little bit.
That's good.
Yeah, they've grown quite a little bit over the summer. They want to start out, we try and get them to be born at about 80 to 90 pounds. And so if we're weaning them at 500, 525, that's a really nice calf for us. And then they're going to go off. Some of those buyers are going to take those and go a few different directions with them, but basically they're just going to try and grow them out over the winter a little bit more. And then some of those may end up going into a yearling program in the summer. That's what we do with the beef that we keep. We run them back the next summer and let them grow a little bit more on grass. They're always eating. We raise our own grass hay, and then we go back out to the desert in the following summer, and they're going to eat grass all summer. And then when they're getting up there, for us to about that 850 to 950 pound range, then we're going to bring them back here to the farm. And we have a few pastures here. Ours are always out grazing on pasture, but then we start supplementing them with 2 grain feedings a day. So we load up a few 5-gallon buckets with local corn oats and barley that we mill ourselves, and we get them in. It's a good way for us to be able to look at their condition each day, to be able to see if there's, if one's gotten out, we get a head count twice a day. If there's a problem with water, any of those things we're able to see at those twice daily feedings. And
I got a question for you.
Sure.
Is this where some of them might get named like Snow Globe number 2?
Yes, you've been on our website. That would be snow globe number 2 is in one of the videos. Yep.
Is there a snow globe number 3 yet?
There hasn't been a 3. There hasn't. There was a 1 and a 2.
Okay.
And
so,
Tyler, maybe you could talk a little bit about your wine finishing experiment.
So we had a few steers that kept getting out. All the fresh green grass, fresh water, and fresh grain that you could eat was not enough for these 2 steers. And there was a guy that taught me how to get a steer to drink wine. And when you look, there's some evidence of, you see it a lot in pork. There's a lot of people that will get pigs drinking Guinness or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's quite a trick to get them to drink wine, but most steers can drink about 5 gallons of wine a day.
And did they get named during this while they were your drunken steers?
They were just winos. Yeah, they
winos,
were the winos.
okay.
Yeah.
Wino 1 and Wino 2.
Yeah, and people really look funny at you when you push an entire cart of boxes of wine across the parking lot to your pickup.
And it's all for the cows. I
Boxed
love
wine
that.
or bottled wine.
And what a likely story when you look at them and say, "This is for my steers." They go, "Yeah, right."
This
Yeah.
is not for me. I promise it's for the steers. I've seen that in pork where they say that it's like Guinness finished, but I thought it meant not that they were feeding it to the animal, but I thought it meant they were like putting the meat in it, like a marinade or something.
No, we had a chef here in Portland that was finishing with hemp with a pork and then did a big humongous like cookout with it. So it's a thing.
Yeah, and there's not really any research as to whether or not the alcohol itself helps start breaking down some of the connective tissue, or if it's just because they're drunk when they go to processing. But there definitely is a difference. I wanted to say people did notice that there was a little hint of wine taste. And there was a little more tenderness to it. So we've only done it a couple of times because I didn't really have a market for the meat, but it was definitely interesting.
And did it work to keep the cows where you wanted them to stay?
At that point, they were in a pen because I had to limit their access to water until they were drinking it regularly. But then once they would drink about 5 gallons of water and 5 gallons of wine a day.
Amazing.
So much wine. They really were winos.
Yeah. And so the only person that looks at you stranger than the people watching you push the cart across the parking lot at the grocery store is the butcher. When you pull up, and typically you drop them off the night before so that they can kind of relax. And when you pull out 10 gallons of wine and ask him if you can borrow a bucket so your steers can have their wine for the night before you leave, that usually gets you some odd looks as well.
That's interesting.
And Tyler, you started having wino steers because your interest in feeding cattle so that there was a terroir in their beef. So maybe you could talk a little bit about, you had the Sweetwater addition for a little while and some different flavors of beef. And then we'd also like to hear about the beef roundup.
Yeah, it was, we wanted to do something to where not just everyone could, a big company couldn't just come along and do what we were doing. And so if we were to say it was just grass fed or it was just this or just that, anybody else could have come along and said the same thing. So we started out early with how we could have a unique story, and that story is the flavor. We produce a flavor here that you can't get anywhere else in the world. And so we kept going further and further down that. And so then obviously these 2 steers that started on the wine, that was another flavor. And then we actually contacted another rancher that's just, he's closer to central Wyoming, and he has totally different grasses because of his elevation. And he kept saying we needed to try his beef, and I did, and it's phenomenal. And they were completely grass finished, about 5 and 6 year old cows. And so for a while we were buying that as our Sweetwater edition because they were along the Sweetwater River. And we really had, and we really had 3 very unique flavors of beef. And then we actually even took it another step further and did a few different breeds of cattle and then fed them on our same program. And we felt like we even got some more differences in flavor there. So we really experimented with, was it the breeding? Was it the feeding? What made up those different flavors?
Hey, let's take a break. And when we come back, I want to talk about Ranch America and your television debut. Oregon State University's College of Agricultural Sciences and the Food Innovation Center are proud sponsors of Meaningful Marketplace. With a mission to serve all Oregonians, we are committed to giving voice to those whose food and agricultural stories are not always heard. By providing access and opportunity for a more diverse and just food system, because food brings people together. Okay, Tyler, tell us, how did you get on television with the Outdoor Channel?
One of our customers, their High Mountain Seasoning here in Riverton, we actually have several people there in the office that buy beef and pork from us, including the owner and his wife. And they're wonderful. They do a lot in our community, and they sponsor some of the shows on the Outdoor Channel. And the Outdoor Channel had a new show called Ranch America, and they came to their sponsors and said, this is what it's about. But they didn't really know where to start. They had a few places lined up. And fortunately for us, the owner said, we know exactly the person you need to talk to, and got to talk to the producers. They wondered if we'd be up for being part of the show, and it was really fun. They came out, the guys were great. They were here for about 3 days and had a lot of fun, and they have continued. They're in season 2, and they have covered some phenomenal ranches.
I want to check those shows out. I do want to ask you if you have some tips for cooking beef from frozen. I noticed that you were talking about that on one of the clips that I found on your website.
Yeah, so we still do that periodically. It was one of those things that just came out of necessity. Like, no one had put anything out for dinner, and the day got longer, and everything kept adding up. And we thought, what do we have to lose? Like, we have to eat at some point, and we're going to put this roast on the smoker to thaw it out. And another catastrophe happened, and we were outside a lot longer than we thought we would be, and this roast kept cooking on the smoker. We now call it the Cowboy sous vide. And
that's good.
So we got back. It wasn't close enough to being cooked that it would be fully smoked, but it was completely thawed out. And I noticed that it was at about 120, 125 degrees internal temperature. It was getting really late in the evening. Everybody was hungry. So I sliced it and started the propane grill right next to the smoker, seared everything off, and made sure it was kind of a medium rare, and everybody loved it. And we didn't know if that was just a one-time thing or if we could do it again. So we tested it out, and we really liked the results. We don't do it all the time, but it's really nice that you can take a roast from frozen. And I've since found other people that do it pretty frequently. But we really like that. Just bring it up to that 120, 125. If you can leave it there for as long as you'd like. And then about the time you're ready to serve, if you can rest it a little bit throughout the day, that's great. And about the time you're ready to serve, go ahead and just slice that roast up, sear it off. You have all the juice stays in there. It's very tender. And if you don't tell people that it's a roast, they'll argue with you that it's some kind of cut they've never heard of.
Are you still making biltong, Tyler?
I do personally, yeah. I did a lot of charcuterie this winter. I typically do the biltong in the summer because you need a lot of heat. So I'll get ready to shift gears, but this winter, I've done a lot of braciola.
And
I do have a question.
Oh, I was just going to ask about your charcuterie hobby while we're on the subject really quick. Is that just stuff that you make for you and your family and friends, or do you sell it?
It right now, it's just for us personally. That would be another huge project to take on, with all of the requirements that you would have to go through to produce that commercially. And I would like to stay married.
We get it.
Yeah, right now it's just kind of a private reserve, but it's a very fulfilling hobby. And we started some cheese making as well. So it's really cool to have a charcuterie board where you've made literally every piece of it.
That's fancy.
And you post about those things on your Instagram. So if people are interested in seeing your cheese making and charcuterie hobby, they can look on your Instagram and see what you're up to.
Yeah, this is kind of cheese making season. It's a good way when you're calving to kill a couple of hours late at night and not just be scrolling on Facebook or binging a show. You can watch your pot of curds, and the temperature is really good right now, so you can get those cheeses pressed and ready to age while the temperature is good.
And Tyler, you first got a dairy cow to actually feed orphan calves, right?
Yeah, the price and the having to constantly be mixing up feed. You can buy the dried milk replacer. It got to where, it was over $100 a bag, and you're using like almost 2 bags to grow each calf out. So we got a dairy cow, and she's wonderful, and she raised a lot of calves. But then when you don't have a calf sucking that cow, you are drowning in milk. And so that was kind of the next thing that we did to process all of that milk that you get when you don't have a bum calf. And now we're like, we should have our heads examined. We're to the point of like a micro dairy. I think we have 6 dairy cows now.
Oh.
So you may see the cheese come out before you see like pancetta for Cowboy cuts.
I didn't realize you had that many dairy cows up there. Man, animals just multiply, don't they?
You need to check on us more often, Melissa. We need help up here.
Melissa, you were telling us about the Rendezvous City Beef Roundup. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, well, Tyler's the spokesperson and leader of that, but it'll be on August 24th, 2024 this year in Riverton, Wyoming, and it's being hosted by Central Wyoming College. And Tyler, maybe you can talk about why it got started. And a lot of it was for the flavor of beef, for the love of beef, and of doing a little more serious, playful competition behind who has the best flavor.
Yeah, that was another one of those things that it came up from, when we first started this, we would have people over for dinner, or we would sell them a half a beef, and everyone would say, "This is the best beef." And there really wasn't any way that, as much as we appreciated the comment, you started hearing that a lot, and there really wasn't any way to prove that. And I looked at all the other industries like wine and cheese and beer and whiskey, and they all had some sort of tasting event, and a lot of them had an award for those. And so it kept growing from there. And I told my wife about it. I said, I think we need to get a bunch of these ranches together and just give out an award for literally who is the best beef in Wyoming. And we did. The first year we were only able to get 8 ranches. And we had a few posts go out on social media, and we got a couple of articles written about us in a few magazines and newspapers. And we had some other producers from other states call us and say, I don't know how you're getting this done, but it sounds really cool. Could we compete? And so that's what led to the second year we had an open division for beef producers from outside of the state of Wyoming.
I think before, Tyler, that you've mentioned that Wagyu has not ever finished in the top 4, which a lot of people, think that's like the best beef. So what has won in this is the 4th year in 2024. So in the last 3 years, what has been the best beef in Wyoming or in the U.S. from the entrance?
We have a lot of people that they have that stigma of they do or they don't like grass-fed. It goes both directions. They're very polarized on it. And we tell what each beef is when at the end. And a lot of people have changed their perspective on what they did or didn't like. So we have had Coriani Longhorn Cross has won. We have had Holstein win. We've had some. The best beef in Wyoming has been won with an Angus cross, but we haven't had any Wagyu ever finish in the top 4. We get a lot of really unique breeds. One of my favorites is we got Brahma beef from Texas. That one really stood out to me. This year, we have a group out of California that finishes their beef on carrots. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that one. We've got to try some Scottish Highland, and that was a fun one. I really enjoyed it. It is a very similar to Scotch in that it's a very rich, dark, kind of a heavy beef, and a really fantastic beefy flavor.
Well, I think it's really cool that you created that event to bring all the ranchers together and show off what they do. We kind of do that here in the Pacific Northwest with our food businesses as well. And I know that we've talked about Wyoming, everybody being so spread apart. One thing that I think that you're doing, I just wanted to acknowledge, is that, every generation that takes over the farm does something different and kind of brings a legacy to their family business and their family land. And so for you, it seems like you have turned the business into bringing product to market rather than just selling cows. And then also you're bringing this connecting your community to your land and to your community. So I think that's really cool. And I just wanted to acknowledge that.
And a fun fact, 88% of U.S. beef comes from U.S. ranches. That's cool.
Yeah, it really, even today, where, like say, we have 3 retail outlets for our Cowboy Cuts business all around the state. 2 are here in the county, and 1 is in Casper, so a little more centrally located. We still have people that say, we're going on. We started Cowboy Cuts in 2019 as an LLC, separate from our other businesses. But we're going on finishing beef for a little over 10 years now. And we still get people that say, we didn't realize that you finished beef, or we didn't realize that we could buy it directly from you. Or so we always have those comments. And I think a lot of it is spending time just developing awareness and access for a lot of people to that. We're very fortunate in Wyoming that we have the Food Freedom Act and a lot of those rules, that we have the informed consumers, and we have a lot of things in place that make it far easier for consumers to access those products, which is fantastic. And we really are leading the way. You see a lot of these Food Freedom Acts that are based around what Wyoming started. So we're really fortunate that way, because I visit with all of the producers that come to the beef roundup, and some of them, the hoops they have to jump through, I don't know if I would still be in it if I had to do that much extra work to get our product to the consumers.
Tyler, I have a question for you that's going to seem a little wild. Are you ready?
Sure.
So, we're from Portland, Oregon, and whenever we go anywhere, people know the show Portlandia, and they say, is it really like Portlandia in Portland? And my answer always is kind of, yes, a little bit. It is like that. It's not that far off the mark. But so the most popular ranching show right now is Yellowstone. So is your life like Yellowstone at all?
We actually have got that some, and I just commented the other day that it's not like Yellowstone.
I'm glad.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
when you you get out to where our main pasture is, like I said, it's 56 square miles is our summer range. The wind blows a pretty consistent 20 to 30 miles an hour most days of the year. There's nothing but sagebrush and wild horses. And we don't have a whole bunch of help. We don't have a bunkhouse full of cowboys. It is literally my 73-year-old father-in-law, myself and my wife and our 2 kids. And that's how we get 600 head of cattle managed every year.
You have your work cut out for you.
Yeah,
Without all the cowboy drama, though, which sounds nice.
Yeah.
the no drama is very nice. Yes, we appreciate that. The cows make enough work as it is. You don't need any of that. But no one is ever going to try and build where we live. There won't be any resorts, no airports. We're good.
I wanted to just bring up something I found today. It's called the Code of the West, and it's one of Wyoming's claims to fame. And I was wondering, could you, Melissa and Tyler, just talk to us about what is the Code of the West?
I believe it's even ratified by the Wyoming State Legislature.
It is.
Tyler, do you want to? I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah, that was some of the founding principles of our business. And I think ultimately some of it goes back to the 10 Commandments. But it is very much a code of ethics with basically keeping your word, doing what you say you're going to do, being upfront and honest and forthright. All of the very strong virtues, I guess, that you would like to think would develop a good business. And so we try and adhere to that. We really try and make sure that our customers are happy with the product that we get, that they get. And we try and do everything we can to keep that product the same all the time. We try and make sure that we're very transparent with what we do. We do have a grain finished product, but it's never in a feedlot. And we don't use any antibiotics, hormones, growth steroids, any of that. It's similar to what Grandma and Grandpa did. And so I think keeping that as a business principle helps keep us centered, and we don't have too much drift that way.
The last three points in the code are talk less and say more. Remember that some things are not for sale, and know where to draw the line. Those are my three top parts of the code. And I really enjoyed our talk today. Are there any, Sarah usually asks, are there any last things you want to tell our listeners, Tyler?
Yeah, thank you for having me. And check out beefroundup.com is within days of launching. We had a little problem with our ticketing software, but if you would love to get to know some beef producers, and if you would love to come out to the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, and try a bunch of beef, all prepared by a chef and from all over the country, it's very unique in that you don't get this but one day a year. We'd love to have you come out. It supports a scholarship for CWC. They've been fantastic partners with us in helping get this off the ground. And we're wanting to build up a great scholarship fund, because the cost of entry into any of the agriculture business, whether it's ranching or farming, is very high. And so we want to do everything we can to support that. And we want to build awareness for all the beef producers. And so it's going to be it's a lot of fun. We have some great celebrities that are going to come out to be our celebrity judges. So if you're wanting to know like anything you could possibly want to know about beef, that's the day to find out. So we appreciate everybody's support, and we will have some merchandise on there. If you're not able to come to the middle of nowhere, Riverton, Wyoming, and taste all this wonderful beef, you can help out by buying a hat or a t-shirt. We'll keep putting some merchandise on that website. And I just encourage people, if you want to do the most environmentally friendly thing that you can do, shake the person's hand that grows your beef, lamb, or pork. If you can go directly to that person, I think, we're not shipping this meat all over the country now or from other countries. That is the lowest footprint that you can have by going across the street or across town or across the county. And there's a lot of resources out there now to help people find producers in their area. So try and connect with someone as close to you as possible. Make sure it's a flavor that you enjoy so that you'll eat it all. And you will be an active portion of your supply chain at that point, because those sales make a big difference to those producers. And you will get an amazing product, far superior to what you can get in the store.
You forgot chicken, Tyler. I had to say, you got to get your proteins, all of them in there.
Yes, and we have one of the greatest chicken suppliers right there in Lander.
Of course. Well, thank you, Tyler. And definitely the Beef Roundup website or other websites are a great way to get connected to ranchers like Tyler. Tyler was saying they mostly just sell their beef here in Wyoming, but there's so many other ranchers and farmers who are selling beef in Oregon or Missouri or Florida, and they're right there in everyone's backyard.
Well, thanks everybody. Tyler, it was nice to meet with you and chat with you. I learned so much today about ranching, and I also have found from a quick Google search that my favorite, cutest cattle is definitely the Highland cattle that you mentioned because they look like they're wearing little wigs. So, new favorite cow in the world. So, thanks everybody for joining. We record Missoni and Marshall live every week. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform like iTunes. Thank you to our audio engineer, Lon, and our production assistant, Chelsea. If you want to be a guest on the show, you can DM us on our Instagram, Missoni and Marshall, and we will be back next week. Thanks for joining, everybody. Bye.
Bye for now.
You're listening to the Startup Radio Network. Listen, learn, launch. 10% of our gross revenue goes directly to women entrepreneurs in developing countries around the world through Kiva's microfinance program.